Okay, it seems we have another science magazine here that's caving in, and a well-noted science magazine and journal here in America, uh, Scientific American itself. And it's nothing really that new. This happened back in 2013, but now they're following with it because they had a new article come out now, and they're going to quit doing any science that relates to race, genetics, history, or anything that doesn't paint somebody in a good light again. Their example is if it seems primitive, they're not going to even discuss it. Well, once you get back to a certain point on us, we were primitive too. You're going to have to look at that. Nope, no, we're just going to drop the whole thing about being scientific anymore. Well, then instead of calling yourself Scientific American, why don't you call yourself a woof? Real science is about to be replaced by anti-white conspiracy theories. Because of simple things like this, Um, this is Darwin stuff. This is Darwin. And he showed how young chimpanzees and their relative that seems to be a little more evolved was orangutans, which they're not showing here, and it had a flatter face on it. Then they're saying there's negroids here, and they have that same prognostic jaw that sticks out here. And the white people don't. Greek, don't. And so you get your phenotypes here off of it, and they're saying that, that's what that had. Then this is old, and this is the origin of species and all those type things, Darwinism type things. Well, now we've gotten way past that, and we realize that African people, negroids, come from a different line, from a common ancestor, but common way, way back, some around 1.2 million BC, where we had a common ancestor, and anything from that point on was different from us. In fact, Caucasians have a Neanderthal that they've mixed with, and so on, and the Negroes, it looks like, had one also, and they think that it's Australopithecus robustus blocki, but they can't get a full genome out of it to start comparing and seeing if that has the tags in it. If it does, it would be very simple to say this looks like it. Just like they were able to do with Neanderthals for us. It was that simple. And so anyhow, they want to drop all this. In fact, they're saying race is just a social construct. Race is a social construct. That's always a weird statement. Every time I see that statement mentioned, race is actually different people. There's Asian people, there's Mongol people, there's white people, there's black people, there's Mexican people and Amerindians and South American, Inca Maya style, sub down there that aren't Mexicans. So there's different races of people and different ethnicities, and then you have subgroups inside those. A good example of that is Africa. It's so huge that there are quite a few different tribal areas through there, and there's really no constant unity. I mean, where we seem to be taught in school, it's like, oh, see that one black guy? They're all just like that all over Africa. But they're not. In fact, all of North Africa has always been Caucasians, and so has East Africa been, and of course the tip of South Africa is now with the South Africans that live there now, but they've given the land back to the blacks, even though there really weren't any blacks around whenever they built it all. They came after, they wanted, and now that we ended up giving it to them. Even though there's skulls that are found there from a place called the Hofmeyr site, you can look up. I've done a video on it. And Hofmeyr, it's Hofmeyr. It's in the Cape area there, not far away, and they have Caucasian skulls to 40,000 BC. So it's odd that they've started, doing this, but Scientific American is calling for banning research into racial differences and replacing actual science with conspiracy theories. Now, Scientific American magazine author John Horgan says that research concerning racial differences is too dangerous. He endorses an anti-white conspiracy theory that non-whites are deliberately held back by white people. So blacks are held down, everybody is, other than white people. It's the reason that white people invented airplanes, cars, going to space and everything, is just because they're holding down the other people. Like you see in the middle of Africa where nobody really got touched, you see they've got a space program. I mean, you know, so it just makes sense. Well, oh wait, no, they don't. They're actually a primitive pre-Stone Age level people still that don't have the wheel or riding or anything, and they live in dung huts and stuff. So pretty much there's been one race to lead this all the way through this, and it's been a Caucasian race. But oh, now you sound racist. Facts are facts. History is racist, y'all. History doesn't have an agenda because it's in existence. It's just what happened. Now you can say things that happen along there are racist, but you can't say the fact that one was more primitive than the other when everything came about to where we are now, that's racist. That's actually the way that it was. And some people don't have the advancement of others in this world to this day. And if you're unaware of facts like this, then you're just ignorant and going around blind. You know, you can go around in your little LA world thinking the world's like LA and never realize that there's a whole lot of different places in the world other than LA. So Scientific American, the author came out, and let's just watch him cuckle right here real quick. I'm going to try to make this not too long, but he says, but another part of me wonders whether the research on race and intelligence giving the persistence of racism in the U.S. and elsewhere should simply be banned. I don't say this lightly. For the most part, I am a hardcore defender of freedom of speech and science. But research on race and intelligence, no matter what its conclusions are, seems to have no redeeming value. Far from it. The claims of researchers like Murray, Harnstein, and Richwine could easily become self-fulfilling by bolstering the confirmation bias of racists and by convincing minority children and their parents and teachers that the children are innately, immutably inferior. So if what he's saying here is if in school we found out that the average IQ of black people or something was less than the average IQ of Chinese people, that we would be racist and hurtful. Or if we found out that the average IQ of like Oriental people was higher than whites, it would hold whitey down. If we discuss what's really there, then maybe we can figure out what the difference is and fix it. If we pretend that it's not there, then that's not really that good. So here's a breakdown of the world countries by their average IQ, and you'll find that the top 5 or 6 right here are all going to be Chinese, right? And they're up at about 108, but it quickly falls to like 105, 104, 102, 101, and 100. And now we go off into the Germanic areas in Australia, Netherlands, Norway, United Kingdom, and they're all the same as each other. And then we get into Belgium, and it drops 1 right there, and it goes to 99. And once it reaches 99, then you have Germany itself, Finland, Poland, things like that go down, and we're all even with that here in the United States, hitting here at 98. We're right up under that. Ooh, 1 point. We're not freaking out if somebody said Germans were 1 point smarter on average whenever we do 1 million of y'all on a test. We'll be like, cool, we're right there with them, huh? Well, the problem that this shows is that we're right there hovering at 100 now. And the scale has changed too, it seems, because we used to average around 110. And the Asians average around 115, but now we're going with this. But anyhow, so this is a moderner thing, I guess, or something new they're looking at. But if that's the case, then we're falling, or the test is getting stronger. So you look in here, and all of a sudden it starts falling, 94, 93, 92, 91, and we still haven't gotten to the Negroid or African areas and stuff. You get down here and all of a sudden Chile and Croatia, Turkey, Costa Rica, Laos, Mauritius, Serbia, Suriname, Ecuador, Mexico, Samoa, Spain, Guyana, you know, and in 87, 86 range, right? So 10, 12, 15 points now lower. You know, whites were heading at about 100 now. This is 15 points lower. This is Cuba and Peru and so on. You keep going down through here though, Marshall Island people and so on their averages, and you keep going down and down and down, and now all of a sudden you start to find down here in the bottom here, all the way down here in the 77, 76, 74, 73, 72, 71, 70 range. You start to see a lot of the African countries and so on. Ethiopia is at 69, Malawi, Niger itself, so on. It's all the way down here to Equatorial Guinea, which is at 59. But you can see that the bottom page here is definitely there. There's Haiti, Liberia. As we go up here though, on this, all these people that we're looking at this point are actually what's considered to, by modern standards, to be below retarded level. Right, whenever we get here to Kenya, that's the marker. 80 is where it's at. It used to be 85. And so if it was 85, now we're going to have to go all the way up to here and absorb in all these people and say, well, you're not really retarded till here, but this is a much smarter range. And now you got to say everybody below here is retarded. Well, we've lowered the numbers apparently, or changed our scale just slightly. But regardless of that, there's one people that are on top of the scale, and it's not white people. Oh no, well, white people and their supremacy should do something about that. We should just make all these countries dumb. No, what's ruining America is all the shit that's going on around us and this racism that he's talking about in this video and things off of it. Look at the colors in this picture over here. Red is low IQ, blue is high IQ, and purple is the highest. Let's go back to it. So this guy's just folding in. Why give all the world's problems and needs? Why someone should investigate all the theses? Why? What good would come of it? Why are we really going to base policies on immigration, education, and other social programs on allegedly innate racial differences? Not even the Heritage Foundation advocates a return to such eugenics policies. Well, no, but it's common sense and logic, people. So you find that America's getting a lower IQ going on, and then you look into it, and we've been taking hundreds of thousands of refugees in from the retarded numbers. And that seems to be our problem. And I know America's been like, give us your poor, give us your hungry, give us your tired. But we're kind of tired, and we're starting to be poor and hungry. So we have to kind of stop that now and chill it out. And then what we should be importing in is people that want to help us fix it and get it on top again. And not ethnicities to draw it down even worse. Screw it. And we don't do that. No matter what country or ethnicity wants us to say screw it and screw that white country, it doesn't matter if it goes down a little more. We don't want it to go down a little more. It's not supposed to. In fact, it shouldn't be down where it is. We're 10 points low of where we think that we should be and where we were recently, so we don't want to have to deal with this either, and we generally can get right back up there pretty damn quick. It's the mix that we have here is North American or United States that we have here that's causing us to have a lower number whenever they figure in everybody that's here. Understand? He says, perhaps instead of arguing over the evidence for or against theories linking race and IQ, we should see them as simply irrelevant to seriously intellectual discourse. Or in other words, if you're really going to be smart talking, you shouldn't talk about things like that, which this is how we get smart. It's kind of foolish, but I'm sympathetic towards the position spelled out by Noam Chomsky in his usual blunt fashion in his book. And here, Chomsky, you can read this thing, but he basically just cucks on the idea and says scientists and pundits who insist on recycling racial theories of intelligence portray themselves as courageous defenders of scientific truth. I see them not as heroes, but as bullies, picking on those who are already getting a raw deal in our society. So now, if you point out the fact that they have a low IQ, it's bullying. And you can't do that. Boy, we're just turning into a pillow puff society. You can't let people know to straighten their ass up. You're just going to let it get screwed. You're not going to try to fix anything. It's not, used to be we did all this science so we could figure out things and fix it. Now we're not even going to do the science to try to figure out what to fix. Is that what I'm getting here? Because it's really getting to the point here where it seems like we're not even doing what we were trying to do 50 years ago. You know, if we start dropping things like that, we may not know, and you may not be aware, but the, Negroids here only come from around down in Africa. It's a different species. It's in Australia. And they're always and only and never been way down here low in South Africa, below the Sahara. All that's above that's always Caucasians. You wouldn't believe how many people I talk to think that just all of Africa cut off at the Mediterranean there was all black people. And it's like, well, there was white people all around the Mediterranean. What keeps them from going on into Egypt and all the way around the Mediterranean? The answer was nothing. So when you look at things like this, what's weird is you find out they've got all these different races and so on together. You can tell the difference. There's cranial traits that are different. I mean, you can just look at bones. Forensic people can tell you just from bones, from their hair. Skin pigmentation doesn't necessarily say that that's it, because Australians, which are dark as hell too, and the Denisovan, the southern India people and stuff, and even islanders, which don't have any Negroid in them, have that same skin color. And indeed, what you think of as white people that are really tan people and shades of tan actually have a gene that's apparently new, 6,000 to 9,000 years ago. The lightening skin gene came in, so before then we were a little darker or warmer skinned too at that point. Maybe this goes along with the Adamic thing in the Bible and so on, and why they were so surprised that Noah was so pale. But the idea we're talking about too, babies aren't really born with it. It's more of an olive skin, and they tan in real easy, and then they hold that melanin in their skin. So it's a little bit different, but you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't have any idea of the way things break down. You may not know that, like the oldest skull that's been found. Let's see right here, a Cellar Man, 6,400-year-old fossil in the Erdar Ifkohas of Azuk, now the Kidal region of Mali, was claimed as the oldest known anatomically modern human skeleton of a Negroid type. Straight up, it's credited. That's the oldest one. Now they have a Proto-Negroid, which is kind of like a Cro-Magnon version, and that goes back to about 13,000 BC, and that's the oldest one we can find of those. So where we find our Cro-Magnon split into modern human at 38,000 years ago, they don't even have a cranial form of their Cro-Magnon that goes back but maybe 1/3 that amount of time. And surely there must be some, but we've not found any at all. Meaning that at this point we can have no other deduction other than to say that they're more of a recent thing than something that came before us. And by the Darwin theory, it was supposed to have been like apes, and then black people came from apes, and then we were the recent, evolution. And of course everybody thinks, well, we're more evolved than them, so that would come after, and everybody tried to line it up like that. No, it's separate trees whatsoever, different kinds, apples and oranges here, people. It's very much that way. But to sit and stop science that shows you the differences so you can figure out what they are. You know, I'd like to find out what the gene is that makes you be able to jump much higher and run much faster. And they would probably be very, very interested in knowing the gene that makes you smarter. And memory retention of the Asians. I'd like to know a little of that too. We could figure out what the genes are that cause and don't cause things and stuff and figure out how it all works. It would be the neatest thing scientifically at all, but what they say is, no, it's racist. It's racist. Only because the other ones that don't like the information are whining. Truth is truth, fact is fact, history is history. And these things don't have an agenda, they're just here in front of you. You know? It's kind of sad that we're at that point here on Earth where we've got the smarts to know things and to get to the next level, but we're trying to whimper and hamper ourselves and be very kid gloves about everything, as opposed to just stepping on through it and saying, dude, get over it. You know, we were in slavery too. Whites were in slavery for longer than black people in America. Whites, 6 times more whites were in slavery. But eventually we got over it and we made spaceships and airplanes and zoom, you know, and it's the ability to do so that we have inherent within us that apparently is not evident in these African people, these Negroid people. And that's just fine. Just don't blame it on us. Just don't tell us it's our fault that you don't have jets and airplanes either coming out of Africa, because it doesn't have anything to do with us. That has everything to do with you being the last evolved thing and perhaps the most primitive people on Earth. You know, nobody's blaming the Amerindians when we got over there and go, oh, you only got bows and arrows, we got guns now. Nobody's saying, well, oh, that's Whitey's fault. There's no reason to say that whenever we found the African Americans and all they had was sticks and spears and stuff, and we were able to take over that either. There's no difference between the two, and there should not be. And we need to find out and get man to that next level. We don't need to sit and hamper and whimper and play puppy games here and stuff with the world and with science. Science itself, whenever you do science, people, whenever I'm thinking about this stuff, I take out of myself. I'm out of context. I don't look at myself as, oh, let me make sure this is white. I don't do that. I literally am able to step out of myself. Like when I meditate, I'm able to step out of myself and go, okay, what's going on here? And I don't care which way it goes. If they say they were green and upside down, I'd be like, cool, green and upside down. Let me find out more about those green and upside down people. You know, I'm just tracing things out. It's just how it plays out. And it makes sense. How it plays out in older times led to what we're sitting in today. It just makes that much sense, but also the fact that one seems to have come out much earlier than the others, chances for more evolution to happen to them, and indeed it looks like that the whites and Caucasians had evolved a lot earlier, and then Neanderthal seems to be more evolved of a creature than the Australopithecus is. Therefore, maybe that led to that too. But somewhat and leading mankind are a totally different endeavor altogether. And whenever it looks somewhat, the other people keep asking to drive, and they had no part in making the wheel and no part in making the car and the engine and the concept. And one of us here is an expert at driving a car, and the other one is not quite sure he knows what he's doing, but he really thinks he knows something now. But what he knows has been given to him in books and knowledge and science and things that all pretty much come out of the same people here, right? It's not coming out of the other people because they're not getting to that level. They're catching in. And, you know, it's terrible to talk about things like this in modern day. But what's even more terrible than that is if you were to let the modern day society that thinks that we all have to have kid gloves on and everything, hamper it down and hamper science down into where it pretty much chokes it out to where it can't go anymore. Your highway of life and existence is in a traffic jam, stuck and unable to continue.